Hey guys, it's Charles Austin here with Liquid Blue Cabarete in Cabarete, Dominican Republic. Summer's coming and it's hot. So with that being said, I'm gonna try to go as quickly and as efficiently as possible through the brand new Strike V3 and comparing it to the Strike V2. Now, sometimes people ask, should I get the V3? Should I get the latest model, let's say? And in terms of this specific situation of the V2 over the V3 hands down has been upgraded and improved, though there are some differences that I wouldn't say would make you change your decision, but basically, if you can get a Strike V2 at the time of seeing this video, they will be more budget friendly, more economical. So for some people that are just getting into the sport, this V2 will do the job for you without any problems. It's an amazing wing. Though they took an amazing wing and made it even better, and now we probably have the greatest wing on the market right now. So what I'm gonna do is actually start off by pumping up the Strike V2. You can tell that this V2 has been used. You can see the bag. It's been around the block. Though it's always nice to see how gear sort of ages with time, because we always see gear when it's brand new. And of course, anything that's brand new generally looks good, or hopefully looks good. So here, I'm gonna pump up the Strike V2. I've already made videos about this, though the reason why I wanna pump them up is because there's something new about the V3 that I think is interesting in terms of the setup. So on the V2, you had one inflate, and then you had a small deflate valve here, a little dump valve on the center strut that you gotta close up. And then you have the push pump essentially, so you push it up so it locks and you push it down to deflate. But in any case, we're gonna pump this wing up real quick. The recommended PSI of this wing, which is a 5 meter, is 8. So already, and this wing was about to fly away, so I'm just gonna take a minute just to pump this up real quick. I have a hard time talking and pumping. I need to get back in shape. Maybe pumping up wings is gonna help me out. So let's see, we got a 5 meter V2. So I was thinking to start this video with having both of the wings pumped up, but I think it's important that you see this difference, which you're gonna see now. So as I'm pumping up this wing, you can tell the center strut is getting automatically inflated. We're gonna get up to the recommended PSI, which is 8. Most people who know me generally know that I like to pump up the wings a little bit higher than the recommended, just because it makes the wings a little bit stiffer. One thing you'll notice on the V3 is that the PSI recommendation is higher, and also the material is a little bit different. So overall, it feels more rigid. But in any case, we got this pumped up to the recommended PSI, which is 8.5. Let me just make sure I got 8.5. Pretty sure I did, but yeah, it was 8.5. So we got it up to the recommended PSI. So this is the V2. And as you can tell, I always put my leashes right here on the handle, the neutral handle. But as you can tell, this wing has maybe, I would like to say, 50 hours or more on the water, maybe 50 to, even though it's a big jump, 100 hours on the water. And you can tell that it has sort of a bit more of a bubbly shape. It's not as flat as what you're seeing in the V3, but that's a design thing. But this wing has always been amazing. You know, the handles have always been great, a little bit soft handles, but perfect steering. Let me just turn around here. You know, perfect steering. Overall, it's held up well for the amount of use it has, from beginners to intermediate to advanced riders. And now what we're gonna do is pump up the V3 just to compare it side by side. So I'm gonna hook this up here so it doesn't fly away. All right. All right, so that shouldn't go anywhere. Now we're gonna take out the V3, which is what everyone's been talking about, which is what everyone wants right now. And they're becoming available, which is great. So the V3, I've made some other videos about it. It's a wing that is improved in all the right places compared to its predecessor, the V2. And you're gonna see in a moment. This one is not totally 100% brand new. It's been used maybe 5 times for a total of maybe 10 hours or so. And it's held up really well. So the first thing we're gonna see here is that the wing has 2 inflates and they completely separated it. So before, like you saw when I was pumping up the V2, it just inflated everything all at once through one valve. Now this time, I gotta inflate the leading edge first and then the center strut. Some people went to the extent of saying, oh, that's too much work, I'm never gonna do this. But in reality, once you get used to it, it's almost the same. So here I am, gonna get this going. I got the leading edge ready to pump. And behind me, we have around 15, 20 knots of wind that, well, not 20 knots yet, but getting 20 knots in May. So the center, the leading edge is needs to be pumped up to 9 PSI. So let's just get that up to 9. One more big pump. So remember, the V2 was saying that it needs to be pumped up to 8.5. Now already, the leading edge of this one needs to get up to 9. So half a PSI more. So let's get that closed up. Once we get the center strut done, we gotta get the, once we get the leading edge, we gotta get the center strut done. And this one is actually 10 PSI. So you can tell that the idea with this wing and separating the inflates is to get the response, there we go, is to get the response of the rider and the wing to improve it even more with a stiffer center strut. So as always, I always tie my leash nicely on the main handle. I just feel like it's a bit more secure, and also when I pull the wing back, I get right up to this handle. So right out of the bat, as mentioned, you can tell that this wing is a lot flatter. And also, one difference I'll show in a moment is that the handles are a little bit harder, right? So for me to get the handle to touch the right here, I gotta give it some good force. But in general, a little bit more bouncy. And here you can see the same. So the handles, even though they're still soft, they're a little bit harder. So it's like the right mix between hard handles and soft handles. Because some handles are totally soft and they don't feel comfortable, but this is the right size for your hand, so it really locks in, or you can do a light grip with 2 fingers. And then it's the right amount of response that whether I pull the wing in or I push it out, it doesn't, my hands are not touching the center strut. And you can tell the amount of power that this wing has, holy moly. And this is some of the improvements that have come because of the new shape. So let's just get these 2 wings next to each other so we can have a side-by-side view. So in terms of lining these up, actually let me work this over. So in terms of lining these up, we can already tell that the V2 is a little bit more, has a little bit more of like a moon shape, let's say, while the V3 is a little bit stiffer. I'm just gonna flip this over. Let me just grab this handle. There's a bit of a tricky one right here I put myself in. Let's see. Right here. So, there we go. So I'm just gonna flip this wing over. So already what you can tell when I hold this wing is that if you look at the material, it's fluttering a little bit. You see how it's getting these little sort of bubbles happening? And even when you hold it, it's a little bit more rounded where the wind is coming in. And when you compare that to the V3 is just a lot flatter, right? It's not getting as much fluttering, right? The two wings are in the same amount of wind. You can tell how this V2, even though it's used up, a lot more fluttering in the material. And with the handles, as I was mentioning, is that the handles here, they're soft, right? So even though I can still pump and get it going, I do feel that that extra rigidity gives me a bit of a better control, because even when I'm pulling the wing here, like I was doing before on the V3, my hands, if I push away quick, I actually manage to touch the center strut. With the hard handles, it's just a direct response. Here, if I do it a bit more controlled, I can almost have the same feeling, but there it just does it automatically because of those handles. So in terms of the shape, where you could tell that this wing is a lot flatter, and the profile also seems just a hair longer in terms of the width. When I put these side by side, you can tell that the V3 is just a little bit more refined, but also almost feels like it has a bit of a longer wingtip, which might explain when sometimes when I'm in the water, that the wingtips are actually touching the water. Here it feels a little bit more rounded off on the V2s compared to a little bit more pulled in, let's say, compared to the V3, where it's just a little bit more extended, squared, and you feel that sometimes, at least when you're pumping on a sinker board, you're actually touching the water a little bit. But that's something that you get used to. I just started holding the wing a little bit differently, and it works. But one thing on top of the fact that the V3 is improved is that back in the day when you were pumping these V2s, you'd really want to do these big scoops to really scoop in wind and power. Though I feel that with the V3s, I'm gonna get this around here. You actually see how we're gonna do this. Just gonna have to tie this up. The wind is getting too strong to maneuver everything. But essentially, with the V3s, we're getting this pulled in. Essentially, with the V3s, since this is sort of the new focus, is that the handles are more rigid, the wing is flatter, and you see also how it's pulling me even more. Before, I was able to hold the power of that V2 quite easily, but here, I can just tell that I have way more power just because of the shape and the differences in material. You can tell that even though they did a very good job for this year's model with the panels and how it's cut and designed, this new design is even more improved because of how they did the stitching throughout the center and how that disperses the load into the load diffuser, which is all the way at the back, which is even a stiffer material. So in terms of response, and I would almost say weight, this feels a little bit lighter, even though it might not be, but it feels a little bit lighter, maybe because of how the handles are, that they're really pushed away so that it's just capturing the wind nicely and feeling overall light in the hands. And then when it's behind you, you feel that it's overall stable. Not to say that the V2 goes wherever it wants to, but this is definitely a stable wing. And we'll just try to see here. I'll see what happens here. You know, the wind is not coming in 100% straight on. It's a little bit side off, but it's holding up pretty well. You see it's capturing the wind. But the V3, in terms of the new materials they put on the leading edge, the new material overall that's used across the wing, and how the panels are stitched together, has really made a difference in terms of the overall feel. And this is something that's gonna be very noticeable on the water. So apart from the fact that you have to inflate two different inflates, which is no big deal, And in a previous video I made, when you're folding up these Strike V3s, you want to be a little bit more careful because of the load diffuser. You don't want to be damaging it. It's honestly it's just hugely upgraded compared to its V2 counterpart. And I'll give it a running jump here. It just feels like there's more power. And in terms of pumping, which I was mentioning with the V2 back in the day, you really wanted to give it these big pumps to generate power. And almost now with these new rigid, soft rigid handles, whatever you want to call them, I almost feel it's better to give it these small pumps because you generate way more power. See this? I start giving it these small pumps and it starts already just generating power like crazy. So how you fly this wing is slightly different in the sense that it generates power, even more power, but how you generate that power is a little bit different. So in any case, to wrap this up, because this is a bit of a sort of a technical sort of experience in terms of seeing this wing in action, even though I've been testing it for a couple days, when you put these two wings side by side, you realize that in terms of material durability, the V3 has surpassed the V2. In terms of the improvement of the handles, even though the handles, I always liked them, the V2s and even the V1s, the new V3 handles I think is a great crossover because I've tried hard handles, but in reality I never really liked them. And I've tried the boom and I also wasn't a big fan. I could see how people might like them, and I could also see the responsiveness that you have with a hard handle, but in reality, I just felt that it wasn't for me personally. And then there's also a whole other thing with maintenance and the fact that they could get, I find like the failure rate's a little bit higher on those and they can get damaged. And you can also hurt yourself. On hard handles, you fall onto the handles, nothing really happens. On hard handles, different, or on a boom. And then, apart from that, if we think about the overall look and the overall shape, it just looks sleeker, looks more performance orientated, and out on the water, the lift from this new shape and the new materials that gives it that stiffness is totally different. It's actual lift. And here we got a ball flying down the beach. But in any case, so to wrap this up, if you're getting into the wing foiling sport and you're on a budget, let's say, getting a V1 or a V2 is perfect because they're amazing wings, and if you can get them at a discount, that's a great opportunity. But now, if you don't find a V1 or a V2 and your only option is a V3, well, you got an upgrade. The V3 is amazing, and it's a wing that I'd recommend to beginners as well as to intermediate and professional riders, as you've seen people in the F1 team riding them. They're just great wings overall. And some companies said, hey, we came out with a new wing and all they do is change the graphics. This year is not a year like that. There's significant performance upgrades, and we're gonna be seeing that out on the water once you get to try it. And I realized right on at the beginning when I tried this wing in light winds as well as strong winds, it held up very well. In light winds, you can tell that since the handles are a bit more rigid, and the fact that you could do these smaller pumps and be more efficient with it, with these wings, since they're a little bit more, let's say, flappy, to do those small pumps didn't really generate you much speed. But here, since the wing is stiffer, the small pumps actually do you something. You can see that it's just straight, and it's just pulling me whenever I do these small pumps. So in the light winds, those small pumps actually help you get up out of the water. And then in the bigger winds, well, you already have the power. So either one big pump or multiple small pumps and you're up and riding. So definitely, if you're considering this Strike V3, hands down, it's an upgrade to all the previous years, and it's an amazing wing that I would recommend to anybody. And for myself, I'm gonna be riding these, and with the new sizes it comes in 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, and then you get into the CWC series, which is the 6, 7, 8, and now the 9, the CWC V3. This range of wings, the Strike range, completes all the wind conditions and all your needs. So it's definitely a wing to consider. And of course, you just gotta scale it to the size and the wind conditions that you have, but it is an amazing wing. So with that, all that being said, guys, this was a bit of a review, going a little bit in depth. For some people that are not as technical, it might get a little bit boring at some parts, but I think everything here overall has been improved, and look no further. This swing is complete as is, straight out of the bag, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. So my name is Charles Oswin, guys, with Liquid Blue Cabarete in Cabarete. It's currently May 2023, and we have a beautiful day in paradise. So I'll leave you with it, guys, and have a great day.